on media and content hyper-personalization. We're going to have this presented by Pierre-Yves Danet, and he graduated from the High French Engineering School at Frey and joined Orange France Telecom in 1992, taking responsibility for a research group on ISDN. He set up a lab on home automation, following which he moved to work on application server research. In 2005, he represented Orange at the steering board of the newly created NEM, the New European Media Initiative's European Technology Platform. He was appointed Vice Chair of Strategy in 2007. In 2010, he obtained the senior grade of the SAE, the Société d'électricité, d'électronique et des technologies de l'information et de la communication, and from the non-French speakers, that's electrical, electronic, and ICT. He's been in charge of collaborative research at Orange Labs Europe since 2013. He is also the Vice Chair of the FIWARE Mundus Committee. His objective is to evangelize FIWARE outside Europe. He leads ETNE, the European Telecommunications Network Operators Association's Research and Innovation Group, and represents Orange at the AIoTI, the Alliance for the Internet of Things Innovation. Pierre-Yves has recently been appointed one of the French contact points for the Next Generation Internet Initiative and serves as an expert for the Hub for NGI project. I will now hand over to him to talk to us about media and content hyper-personalization. If you have any questions or comments, please type them in during the presentation, and then we'll switch over to Q&A at the end when we look at those as well. Thank you. Pierre-Yves, please go ahead.
Okay, so many thanks. So thank you for joining this webinar. So I will make my best, to explain you what we have done in terms of hyper-personalization within the NEM. So the agenda of today is the following. So first, a very short introduction of the new European Media Initiative, the NEM initiative, which works on this paper. Strategic importance of hyper-personalization. So enablers on key aspects. Personal data management, which is one of the key aspects that I would like to share with you, and then so we'll let you some times, obviously, for question and answer. So NEM initiative has been set up in 2005, so it's 13 years ago, and the initial idea was to try to establish a link between telecom and media sector, media and creative sectors. So the idea, of course, is to try to develop a number of technologies which help media and creative sector, to use ICT technology in their daily business. So now, the most important contribution from NEM is to develop a vision and strategic research agenda, which obviously feed and helps the European Commission to build the framework program. So it was mainly FP7, Horizon 2020, and now the next Horizon Europe program. So it's really our main purpose, and so we are working through position papers first and try to aggregate themselves, in order to bring some clear idea of what should be the next future, or what type of technology we need to develop. Today it's more or less 1,000 members, from 100 countries, and so this group of people are mainly content providers, creative industry, broadcasters, network equipment manufacturers, network operators and service providers, academia, standardization bodies, and government institutions. So it's large scope of competencies which are around the table, and obviously, so papers that we build as a good value. Just to give you some word about what we thought regarding and the definition of hyper-personalization. So the idea is to develop obviously some technology which help service provider to propose services which really fit so the customer requirement according to so their behavior, its location, service, and so on. It's really taking into account a number of information and try to in order to help to develop a really useful services according to a number of constraints. Consumer has been transformed in very proactive prosumer. They select offer that fits their requirements well. They opt for content, product, or services that seems to have been designed for them, as well as producing and designing them whenever possible, and finally even customizing when required. So it's really the idea that we have behind this term of hyper-personalization. Now, regarding technologies, obviously we see so personal data and a huge amount of personal data, which has to be processed in order to extract so the key essence of what we need to personalize the services. And so, of course, it is based on big data technologies and also artificial intelligence, but also a number of other enablers that I would like to propose and to present to you today. So hyper-personalization has a really strategic importance for business, for European business. First, because European society, has a specific position regarding so privacy, ethics, and so on. So comparing, to other world countries such as US or China, which has not exactly the same vision. And according to the specificity of European citizen or European regulation, behind hyper-personalization paradigm, there is a diversity that will be resource and not restriction. So meaning that so there are really some specificity we need to take into account, and obviously to prepare some businesses which should be really in line with our customers. Today, so most of you know that service provider and maybe so the GAFA has some bad so image from consumers in Europe because of course of privacy and ethics. And so we need to, through such a technologies, to reconsider or to make reconsider so European citizen a good image from a service provider and content provider. And it's really what the importance of hyper-personalization is. Try to help people to become proud and confident with the service and the personalization of services that they will get. Now, regarding key aspects, enablers and key aspects. So we have identified 7 of them, which are from ours, the most important topics that we need to address when we look to hyper-personalization. So first is user behavior capturing. Then you have novel recommendation systems, identity management, which is key for these services, but also for others, big data technology and artificial intelligence, which has to be dedicated to the specificity of hyper-personalization. Of course, we need to speak about privacy and accessibility, which is also a key point, to help anyone to access to any services which are proposed by service provider and content providers. So we try to go through all of these key topics in order to share that with them. So looking to user behavior, so capturing, so obviously, so when you try to characterize when people was consumers, so you need to learn from him, and so this should be through acquisition of explicit information. So it's really user preferences and interest that the user himself so feel in some tables or some questionnaire, some survey, and so there are two issues regarding this method. So first, users are not always ready to express their preference, and sometimes so this preference should be not the same at the same time according to a specific behavior or a specific date or location and so on. And then, in order to have a good value of this explicit information, obviously you need to have continuous updating of user preference, and sometimes, so this should provoke some inconsistency between some information that you filled, so maybe 2 years ago, and the one that you fill today. So it's quite difficult then, you know, for technology to identify which is true and what is still valid or not. So the second one is the new system, which are mostly used by capturing implicit information, which comes from observation, you know, when you are surfing on internet, when you are using social media and so on. So these platforms are collecting so every time information from you and try to design your profile according to this information which has been captured. And today, most of the existing application are using the two techniques, combining the two techniques, and trying, you know, to extract from the two source of information, so the most relevant one according to the service that you want to propose. So that's more or less, you know. So this topics, this enabler. So one of this key topics of hyper-personalization is first to characterize the profile of a specific user in maybe several situations. When you are at home, when you are at work, when you are on the move, and so on, you should have different preferences and interest, and so these tools should be able, you know, to express this different situation and try to identify your different profile. So that's the first key point. Oops, maybe. Did you see something? Oh, okay. Maybe I okay. So.
We lost your screen.
Sorry?
You just lost your screen. We can't see your slides.
You can't see my slide?
No,
okay.
they've just gone off.
Okay, I will try to look again.
Not right now.
Did you see it right now?
Yes, it's working now.
Okay, so maybe I'm not in the wrong. I am in the wrong slide. I don't know what's happened. Okay, sorry. Okay, so I will. Oops. Oh, I'm not on the right one. Sorry for that. Okay, I was there. Okay, so looking to this capturing of information, so we need to follow a number of position. First, so this capture of information should be transparent to the user, meaning that user should know that a system is looking to their own preferences, is profiling you, and so on, in order to get trust and confidence to the system. That's one of the main points, so from the user point of view. Second point is so the objectivity. So as I told you, there are several situation when where the user or the consumer should be profiled, and so the system should be objective. So when capturing and modeling a user, so it's one of the key aspects as well. And finally, so there should be also some contextualization aspect, as I told you. So according to the situation, so the system should be able, to fine tune user information and profile in order to be sure that the service offering at one moment in one situation is really what the user is expecting. So there is a number of things to do. If you want to have a good user behavior capture, it's something that has to be followed in order to keep trust and confidence with end users. That's for user capturing behavior, which is the first topic. Second one is on a novel recommendation system. A recommendation, of course, is based on a number of information, but also it also have a link to the content, to a service, to a product, in order to accommodate it, or to modify it, or to adapt it to the user according to its profile. And of course, there are a number of applications which take advantage of such enablers, which has to follow and use the following topics, which are acquisition and modeling user information. So as I told you, so you need to get this information and then to model it. Same, you have to make the same with the content information itself, and then so you need to merge and to process the content, the basic content, with the user information in order to build the information adapted to the end user. And of course, that are through a specific algorithm, recommendation algorithm, which has to be improved during the life of the project, so using artificial intelligence technology, for instance, in order to be more and more accurate and more efficient regarding the request and the end request of the user. And then at the end, obviously, you need to present the result and generation of confidence of the user, as I told you. So you need also in this recommendation system to give to the end user not only the result, but also somewhere a feeling of confidence, which is very key, for future or for acceptation of the system by the end user. Then you have the identity management, which is one, of course, of the key topics for hyper-personalization, but also for other services. It's not only the same, but due to the fact that you need to be able, to adapt a content or a service to end user, you need to identify the user before. And this identity management should also be trustable by the end user, and should be easy to do. Meaning, so ID and password is not obviously the best way, to provide so this good experience of the customer. So you need, to develop some new manners of identity with I don't know eye recognition or I don't know. So there are voice recognition and so on. So there are a number of new technology which could be used, to give to the user an easy way to identify himself and to get the services. So that mean obviously that so identity management should have standards in order, to ensure interoperability between services, meaning that one identity so services should be able, to help end user to access to one or several services, and not only using hyper-personalization. So it's very key, for us just to have this standard or interoperable so identity management. So you also need to provide some group. Create groups such as families or friends or so on, in order to be able, to invite easily. So this relation, in one or the other another services that you are willing to use. For instance, if you want to share, a specific content with one people that has the same interest to such a content, so you need to be able, to make some linked identity between these two people. So that's something that should be very interesting, to develop and to have. Then below all this aspect, you should have some basic technology, I would say, because the most accurate, so the user profile should be so the more information you need to process. And for that, so obviously, so using all our ICT tools today, such as social media or email or web surfing and so on. So the system acquires a lot of information from only one user, and so at the end, so you need to use so big data technology in order to manage all this information. So it's very important, in particular, due to the fact that a system or a service should be able to adapt content in real time, which is also key for the end user. And to make all this data processing, in real time, you should have a big data infrastructure behind, able to manage large scales of data collection. It's really something key for hyper-personalization of services and content. Regarding artificial intelligence, so obviously, so you should have in the recommendation system, you should use so artificial intelligence technologies such as data analytics or deep learning and so on, or machine learning. But obviously, so it would be up to the service provider or content provider to build so the most efficient services using this basic technology in order to bring to the end users the best experience. And so all this artificial intelligence technology has to be used in real time for hyper-personalization, but so so there are still, you know, a place for differentiation and business competition between service and that and content providers in order to, you know, to bring the most efficient so algorithm using these different technologies. Looking to privacy, which is key and which is really, you know, the central point for European so citizen and so for regulation, as I told you before. There is a need, you know, to ensure to the end user this privacy at the end. There are a lot of devices which will be used, network technologies, data storage technologies, and so on. And so we need to guarantee, you know, to the end user so this privacy, meaning that, you know, you need to be to feel that so all this data that he has generated has been used in a transparent manner and help him at the end, you know, so in order to have the best experience on the services. It's something that we need to work on, and for that, so the most important thing for our point of view is to give back the control of so all this personal data to the end user himself, and it should be up to him, of course, to offer access to service and content providers to this own information. So I think it should be some way, you know, to fix this issue of privacy and personal data and give back to, you know, the power to the end user to manage their own personal data. That's really one thing that we are pushing. Another important aspect, societal aspect, I would say, so in parallel to privacy, it's accessibility. You know, so most of the service today are not always designed for all, meaning that some people which are deaf or blind, so are not able, you know, to access to some content, and it's somewhere a pity. And in our domain of content, creative, and media, so we really push to have so, you know, a possibility for any European citizen to access to all these services. And hyper-personalization should obviously help, because when people who have a disability obviously could have this information in its profile, and the system should be able, you know, to adapt so the generation of the final content or final services according to this specific situation. And it's something that we are pushing. So design for all is something that we are pushing in order to help people, you know, to access to any content. Oops, I still have some point. Oops, I have some problem with that one. It seems that you do not see anything. I have a wrong message.
We can see it. We've just lost your slides.
Okay, so I just try to give you back.
We can see it now. You're back.
Yeah. There are some. I come back. Okay, so the last thing, of course, is personal data management. So we saw a number of enablers and topics that have been presented, you know, looking to how to provide hyper-personalized services. So we spoke about data management, and today, so this point is central for us. And so, as I told you, so so there are two two ways, you know, to handle and to manage personal data. First one is of course under the end user responsibility, and second one is under the service provider responsibility. Today, so it's scenario 2, which is more or less so the most usual situation. So that are, you know, so these service provider and content provider, which so collect your information, build so your own profile, and use it, you know, to bring you so the most interesting service for you. So we sought a limit to this scenario due to some information that I already so gave you before, and we want to push at name level, you know, the scenario 1, when so the end user is able to manage its own profile, is able to enrich it according to, you know, to the evolution of its behavior, of its its center of interest, and then, you know, to give access to service provider on demand, meaning that when a service provider is willing, you know, to push a specific service to the end user knows that this specific service provider is using its personal data. So it's really what we are willing to push. I guess it's really in line with the NGI so vision as well, and in order to separate, you know, user content and data from internet-based software and services. So service portability and data decoupling should be the must for us. It's really so what we are willing to push. It's one of the conclusions of our paper. So I would like to give you a short conclusion of this paper. So since the beginning of NEM, we push this ATAWAD, you know, concept, so anytime, anywhere, any device, and so this hyper-personalization is contributing to this concept that everyone is willing to have at the end, you know. Try to have the best services at the best moment, so according to different criteria. And so obviously there is behind that this point of privacy or personal data protection and so on, which has to be fixed. And so I hope that NGI should be the program who will fix this point, not only from a technical point of view, but also for a regulation point of view. Because if you want to have such a decoupling between personal data and services and content, you obviously need to have that at worldwide level. In order, you know, to be sure that one content provider from China is not continuing to use your personal data without any control. So it's I think it's a huge challenge. As I said, not only from a technical point of view, but also as regulatory and policy point of view. So it's more or less finalize my presentation. So I just would like to thank, you know, all contributors to this paper that I have presented to you. So it's a paper which has been done for the NEM the NEM member through the Vital Media project, which is one of the projects founded by the Commission, looking, you know, to developing so content, media, and service or creative service. So this paper is available on the NEM website. If someone wants to have a look more accurately of what has been written, and obviously, so I am ready to answer any questions that you have on what I have tried to present to you. So thank you for listening anyway.
Thank you, Pierre-Yves. That was really interesting. As you mentioned, it is one of the key topics for the NGI, and I guess with GDPR coming in as well, personal data has become more and more important. And of course, you mentioned as well the importance of delivering the customer experience, which the modern customer understands very well, because there's several options. There's several different devices, as you mentioned, and you want to make sure that you're reaching the customer. They'll go somewhere else. So in terms of being very relevant, that was a great webinar. Thank you very much. There was one question which I provided an answer to, just in case other people want to know. Pierre-Yves has been good enough to agree we will share the webinar and the slides from the ngi.eu website. Afterward, you will receive a message to let you know that this is going to be done. So are there any other questions from the audience on the presentation itself? We should, I believe, very quickly have access for people to either talk or to chat if you prefer. Yes, everybody can now talk. So please go ahead and ask your question if you have one, or if you've got a comment as well.
So it seems to be clear to everybody. It's good.
Right. Yes, I do have one question actually, and it's a bit to do with a workshop I attended when I first joined the NGI project. And it was about the option to not join in, so to leave if you don't trust that your data is being used properly, if you don't trust that the services you have access to are not abusing your data, abusing your privacy, and so on. What would your response be to somebody in that case? Because you mentioned how the importance of using big data, and obviously that works if everybody contributes. So if somebody said, no, I don't trust what is being done with my data, no, I just, for that reason, I want to completely remove myself, how would you address that?
Yeah, you're right. It's a key point, because today, many people don't trust anymore, in all this ICT technology, because it's going very fast. So of course, as I told you, we need a regulation somewhere, and so we need to explain then, the content of this regulation, in order to ensure to end user that so the system is trustable. So I think it's all, but anyway, it's very difficult. It's very difficult, even impossible, to force people, to put their data online and to manage the data. So that's the weakness of the solution, obviously. But so it's difficult, even impossible to make it. Yeah.
Right, thank you. That I think that's generally what you do tend to find. But you're right. It's making sure that it works, so that people aren't moving away, but rather contributing, because that benefits everyone else. Have you got any other questions from anyone? Okay, there's something typed in. Just 1 second, I'll read it. So the question from Fabian is, as regards one of your first key aspects, user behavior capturing, you said that transparency for the user has to be guaranteed. What's your opinion on how the current situation is? And are we lacking transparency, especially by big social media companies?
So my feeling is that today transparency does not exist today. So when you look, to social media network, or to search engine, or to cookies in your web browser and so on, obviously, so you feel that transparency is not the case. So and we need to fix this point. So that's my feeling, and I think it was the feeling of the group who write down this paper. So the fact is also that the regulation is not the same in all the countries in the world, meaning that it's very difficult, to ensure such a transparency. But so what we felt in the group is that Europe has a good point to play there, due to our history and so on, and our interest, in privacy and in transparency. So that was the feeling of the group, and it's why we are trying to push now, not only at technical level but also at policy and regulation level, in order to find some way to ensure this transparency, not from as you said, from a concept point of view, but also we need that end user feel this transparency regarding service provider and content provider. It's really key today, yes, because today, so when people post some pictures on any social media network and so on, so they should be replicated at so I don't know how many times without any control. And today there is no possibility to withdraw exhaustively content from the web, because it appears in every cache machine and so on. So we need to think about and to find the right way to ensure this transparency. So at regulation policy level, and also obviously at technical level, we need to find some techniques which help to ensure this transparency to the end user. But as I said, yes, I think the fact to be able to withdraw one content exhaustively from from the web, I would say, or from from internet. So I think it should be also a must. Meaning that if one is has put on one day one content that he wants to destroy, so he should have the possibility to make it. And today it's very, very difficult.
Right, thanks. I've got a follow-up question actually for that one, which says, have you got an opportunity to compare with Alibaba, Amazon, other giants, and the role Europe could play to catch up, looking at both policy and the technology?
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. No, we never make any benchmark of different service provider or content provider, so profiling, I would say. I think it could be a good idea, for a future study, just to see how they work. But somewhere, so it should. So I don't know if such people should be able, to open their system, to us in order to make such a study, because so that's the added value that they have, in their algorithm. And so maybe it's something that it's difficult today to do, except if we build a totally virtual profile from one people, and we try to check, what the recommendation are made by the different service provider. Maybe it should be a way to proceed, but I think it's a very good point that we can try to think about.
Right, thanks. So I've got two questions. I'm going to read them back to front, actually. So Hadmid, who actually asked the question you just answered, suggested that there's an interesting article on the strategy of Alibaba and the future of business, with lessons from China's innovative digital giant by Ming Zheng in HBR. Thank you. That would be something really interesting to look at. And then there's a question from Irini, who's asked, hyper-personalized content is a great concept in terms of diversity and accessibility, and it certainly paves the way for future content production. However, can you ensure that the creation of data plus content enclaves, namely filter bubbles, is avoided? And how would you go about maintaining pluralism, particularly with regard to news content?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question as well. Yeah, sure. So I think that personal content. So we spoke about personal data, but personal content is also key, as I told you before. And so, yeah, I think that such technology could be also used to search and to get some specific information from your own content that is somewhere stored in the cloud and in different clouds. Such hyper-personalization technology could also help you, to find the right content at the right moment. Sure, yeah, I think it's a good point. It's not only for service provider or content provider, it's also for user content that such technology could be used. Yeah, sure.
Thank you. That's the questions I've got. Is there anybody else who wants to ask a question? I think that's it. So we've got one other bit to go on, but want to thank Pierre-Yves again on behalf of everybody here. Thank you, audience, as well, for your participation. These were really interesting questions as well. Thank you. So we're going to have a very quick news stroke event run through. I'll hand over to Timo from Artel to do that. Once again, Pierre-Yves, thank you. We will share this online. And if you've got any other questions, please go ahead and join the NGI map or the newsletter. It's the best way to be able to get in touch with other people interested in the initiative.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Apasaha and Pierre-Yves. It is Timo Lahnalampi from Martel Innovate and working in Hub for NGI project. And I just would like to highlight a couple of or several events and webinars taking place in coming weeks. And actually 1 week after next week, there will be series of webinars. First of all, there will be info sessions on ICT 24 NGI calls on work program 2019, and especially there on research and innovation action topics. And on November 20th, there will be info session on strengthening internet trustworthiness with electronic identities. And then on following day, 21st of November, service and data portability, and the third info session on this series will cover open internet architecture renovation. And as done today, in this webinar, there will be similar type of webinar on Friday, 23rd of November, concerning privacy and transparency topics. And then the next physical event where you can meet NGI team will be ICT 2018 in Vienna in the beginning of December. And there NGI will be really active on 3 areas. First of all, there will be NGI booth. That will be a central place to gather together NGI community members. There you can easily meet colleagues and have fun. And then there will be also new research and innovation action projects, which will tell you about coming open calls next year. And then there will be networking session on 4th of December. And title there is Let's Create the Next Generation Internet. It's ours to shape. So that networking session will be 4th of December. And then there also will be a conference session Beyond the Internet, Next Generation Internet. And that will be on 5th of December. So please proceed to ngi.eu website and events. You can find there all those details about the webinars and also about the ICT 2018. And then concerning where you can find all information, as Apasah already said, and I briefly mentioned, ngi.eu is a central place where you can find a link to NGI map. There you can register your organization, and you can even find their potential partners for coming NCI ICT calls. Then there is also a link to consultation platform that is online discussion channel, and there are also surveys available. And then you can follow up in Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube channel will also contain this webinar recording. Okay, so thank you also on my side, and now please navigate to nci.eu website. Thank you. Bye now.
Okay, thank you. Bye.